Chapter 920. Shen Miao's heart tightened. As long as Xie Jingxing was able to conceal it slightly, he would most likely act as if nothing had happened, and Emperor Yonglu would not say the matter of Prince Rui being injured in front of the Liu and Yi families. But at this moment, Emperor Yonglu did not hide anything. Did this mean that this matter was so serious that it could not be concealed? Ji Foran stood beside Shen Miao and immediately held Shen Miao's hand tightly. Most likely she was afraid that Shen Miao would be anxious and even advised her, "It is hard to avoid friction in this hunting ground. Most likely he was accidentally injured somewhere. With so many guards protecting, it should be fine." But her face was filled with worry. Shen Miao did not want Ji Foran to panic, so she responded to her, but her heart did not think so. Since Emperor Yonglu let Xie Jingxing leave the city first and did not let Xie Jingxing be exposed in front of these officials, then Xie Jingxing's injury would definitely not be as simple as a small friction. She looked around and did not see Xie Jingxing, Tai Yi, and the rest. She was even more anxious. Emperor Yonglu did not seem to want to speak more, and even though he had hunted this lion, his expression did not seem to be happy. Everyone guessed Prince Rui's injury, but knew that Emperor Yonglu was not happy this time. Everyone knew that Prince Rui and Emperor Yonglu had a close relationship, and no matter if Prince Rui's injury was serious or not, the two of them would go to the inner field together. The one injured was Prince Rui, so Emperor Yonglu would definitely not be happy. Because of this, no one dared to talk to Emperor Yonglu at this moment. Even Jing Fei put away her arrogance and carefully waited at the side. Since the lion was hunted, everyone naturally did not need to stay on the hunting ground. Emperor Yonglu had to return to the palace, and the families of the officials also had to return to their residences. When everyone was being careful, Liu Zhengchun had to ask about Emperor Yonglu's 60th year ceremony, as if nothing had happened. Emperor Yonglu usually still had some phase towards Liu Zhengchun, but today he scoffed coldly and left with a flick of his sleeves. The officials were well aware of that unhappy attitude and whispered to each other. Liu Zhengchun was not only not angry, he seemed to be somewhat happy, which made that fiendish face look extremely terrifying. Shen Miao also rushed back to the residence of Prince Rui as she was worried about Xie Jingxing's injuries. Ji Foran and Ji Yushu also wanted to go, but Shen Miao shook her head. This matter is not clear yet, and one feared that it is not that simple. If Imu and Yushu go now, it would be easy for others to exploit the loophole. I will first go back to take a look at what exactly is going on. Yumu and Yushu will come over when His Highness is better. Pausing, she then said, "The more it is at this time, the more one must not panic." Even though Ji Yushu and Ji Foran did not understand the ins and outs of this matter, they were after all people who had rolled in the whirlpool of imperial power and slowly felt out the meaning in Shen Miao's words. Ji Darren deeply agreed with Shen Miao's words. Thus Ji Yushu and Ji Foran no longer followed. The few of them parted ways, and Shen Miao, Mo Qing, and entourage immediately rushed towards the residence of Prince Rui without stopping. Star Anise and Fennel comforted Shen Miao. "Foran, do not worry. Master's martial arts are not weak. An average person would not be able to hurt him. Perhaps this is Master's plan to confuse the enemy." Shen Miao shook her head. "I do not feel good in my heart." It was more than bad. It was as if something was tugging at her heart. This feeling made her feel very uneasy, and she could not wait to appear in the residence of Prince Rui the next moment to see what situation Xie Jingxing was in. Star Anise and Fennel looked at each other in dismay and did not make a sound. When they reached the residence of Prince Rui, Shen Miao got off the carriage and directly walked towards the residence's doors. The guards at the door quickly let her in, and when Shen Miao stepped in, she found that the residence was strangely quiet. Chapter 921. If it was in the past, Uncle Tang would have come up early to greet her and call her for him back to send some sweet soup, but today there was not a single person. Shen Miao's heart became anxious and did not say anything further as she walked towards the courtyard. Coincidentally, she saw Uncle Tang pacing back and forth at the door of the room with a worried look. Shen Miao's heart thumped, and Uncle Tang just happened to see her. Shun Miao immediately went up and did not say anything else to him, but asked, "How is he?" "His Highness's injuries are very serious, and Gentleman Gao is currently treating him." Uncle Tang sighed with a worried look. "I have not seen His Highness like this for a long time." Shun Miao thought about it before pushing the door and walking in. Upon entering the room, she could smell a strong smell of blood. Tai Yi, who was beside Xie Jingxing, was also inside and was silently twisting a handkerchief. The blood in the basin was enough to make one's heart jump. Gao Yang's brows were tightly locked, and when he saw Shun Miao entering, he was slightly surprised before saying, "Do you understand now?" Shun Miao walked quickly to the bedside. Xie Jingxing's eyes were closed. His face was like paper, and his lips were pale. His clothes on the upper half of his body were pulled apart, and there were layers of arrow wounds on his abdomen. The deepest was a knife mark, and it was different from the last time Shun Miao saw it. This knife mark was obviously new, but because it happened to cover the old wounds, it was like the old wounds had not healed and the new wounds were added, making it very deep. And what made Shun Miao's heart turn cold was that the blood around the wound was purple. She pointed at Xie Jingxing's wound, and her voice was somewhat unsteady. "This, dipped in poison." Gao Yang straightforwardly cut off her words. Shun Miao was like being struck by lightning. After a moment, she calmed her mind. "You can cure it?" Gao Yang shook his head. "This is not a single poison, but a mixture of several poisons. If I want to cure it, I must first distinguish what kind of poison it is. This will take some time, but his wounds can't wait that long. If it cannot wait that long, then think of a way to make him wait. In short, his life is in your hands, and there cannot be any mistakes." Shun Miao shouted sharply. Gao Yang was stunned. He knew that Shun Miao was not as gentle and kind as she looked on the surface. But it was the first time he saw Shun Miao speaking so harshly, as if she was a superior commanding her subordinates. Even Tai Yi was stunned. He had always felt that even though this future young foreign was intelligent and could be considered scheming, but her attitude was too soft. Usually she would have a warm smile and lack some ruthlessness. If she was to accompany Xie Jingxing, she would inevitably become a burden in the future. Now seeing Shun Miao's appearance, it made him think of the late emperor who had passed away. Shun Miao took a deep breath and calmed her emotions before asking Gao Yang, "How many days can he hold on now? How many days do you need to cure his poison?" "He can hold on for 7 days at most, but I'll need at least half a month to cure the poison." For the first time, Gao Yang revealed an expression of helplessness and even resignation. The most urgent matter now is that he cannot hold on for 7 days, as his old injuries have relapsed. Shun Miao looked at Xie Jingxing. When he was lying on the bed, he looked very quiet, just like a noble young master who was asleep. However, this kind of arrogant, as if he was living the life of a superior person, was hiding a lot of swords, spears, rain of swords, and killing. Last time when Shun Miao looked at Xie Jingxing's body, she saw that there were many old injuries on his body. She suddenly thought of something and said to Gao Yang, "Wait a moment." She then walked out of the room and into another room. Jingzhe and Guyu were waiting outside. That day, both of them did not follow to the hunting grounds and waited in the residence for Shun Miao, but the seriously injured Xie Jingxing came over. They were originally flustered, and now they were afraid that Shun Miao would overthink and wanted to say a few words of comfort, but they saw Shun Miao running straight to the dressing table and took out a small box from the drawer at the bottom of the dressing table and opened it. Chapter 922. In that box, there was a round thing and a medicine bottle. Shun Miao grabbed the medicine bottle and hurried back to Gao Yang's room. She handed the medicine bottle to Gao Yang and said, "There are 3 yuan gathering pills here. Is it possible to help him?" In that box was the dowry that Luo Tan and Feng and Ning gave when Shun Miao got married. Luo Tan gave a compass, while Feng and Ning gave 3 yuan pills. The yuan gathering pill was something that could help extend one's life and could let a dying person have one more breath. It was difficult for Feng and Ning to give 3 of the good things that the great medical scholar of Ming Qi left behind. Xin Miao suddenly remembered that she did not know if this thing would be useful for Xie Jingxing. Gao Yang was delighted. Where did you get it from? She took the medicine bottle and poured out one pill to take a closer look and sniffed it before saying, "Correct. It is the Yuan gathering pill. It is useful. With this, he would be able to hold on for about 10 days. Xin Miao sighed in relief and heard Gao Yang speaking again. But within 10 days, I might not be able to research out the antidote. No matter if you're able to research it out or not, you have to give it a try. If it is not possible, then we will talk about it at that time. Now that you are a physician, do not bother about the matter of not being able to," she said coldly. Tai Yi and Uncle Tang, who followed along, looked at Shun Miao in surprise. They did not think that at this time, a female like her would be able to keep her composure. In fact, Shun Miao was not as calm as she looked on the surface, but at this time, it would not be of any use to panic. She needed to clear her mind and think about what to do next. Gao Yang nodded his head. "I will now perform acupuncture on him, and with the Yuan gathering pill, let him temporarily settle down. All of you go out first." Shun Miao glanced at Xie Jingxing, and her heart seemed to be tightly gripped by something before she walked out. After walking out, she said to Uncle Tang, "All of you leave first. I want to be alone for a while." Uncle Tang wanted to say something, but hesitated and finally said, "No matter what, Foreign must take care of your body. These old servants will do their best to cooperate with Foreign." Shin Miao complied. Tai Yi and Uncle Tang also left. After dismissing Jing Zhe and the rest, Shun Miao stood outside the door and looked at the courtyard, feeling extremely tired. After a while, she sat down on the steps in the courtyard. The weather in June was already hot, especially in the Great Liang, where it was hot early, but the ground was cool and the wind was rustling. So Shun Miao actually felt some coldness. She thought, if something really happened to Xie Jingxing, what should she do? It seemed that she should think about her future life and what she had to do in the future. This was the rational thing that she should do. But at this moment, she actually couldn't persuade herself to analyze the future rationally, as if those results were something she didn't even want to think about. Since when did Xie Jingxing's position in her heart become so important? So important that when she thought of losing this person in the future, she felt that the remaining time was somewhat dull. If he had never tasted honey, he should have been able to endure it. However, after tasting it and then losing it, everything became unacceptable. She heard someone's footsteps. She didn't know when Pei Lang had walked into the courtyard. Seeing her sitting on the steps, he also sat down. Hesitating for a moment, she then said, "Don't worry. He is a prince of the Great Liang. It won't be that easy for something to happen to him." Shun Miao was silent. Her eyes were slightly dim, and Pei Lang felt that his mouth was astringent and his heart was sour. Speaking of which, he had never seen Shun Miao like this before. Shun Miao always had a well-thought-out plan in front of Pei Lang, and her imposing manner was high, as if she wanted to suppress him. When Pei Lang was locked up in the dungeon of Prince Ding's residence, he had also thought if Shun Miao would feel guilty and worry about his life and death. When Shun Miao was worried about someone, what was she like? Now he finally saw it. When Shun Miao was worried about someone's life and death, there were no aggressive thorns, and she was no different from an ordinary female. Chapter 923. He always felt that Shun Miao was sitting very close to him, but the distance between them seemed to be thousands of miles apart. Pei Lang said, "Go back to the room. The wind is strong." "No need." Shun Miao looked outside. "Your body is not fully recovered. Do not need to care about me. Go back and rest first." Pei Lang was silent for a moment before saying, "I will accompany you." Shun Miao was too lazy to persuade him. At this moment her mind was not on Pei Lang and was only concerned about Xie Jingxing's injuries. Gao Yang was busy for the entire night. Shun Miao also sat for the entire night. Speaking of which, that night in the hunting grounds while waiting for Xie Jingxing's news, Ji Foreign dozed off, but Shun Miao did not sleep. She also did not close her eyes for 2 days, but she was full of energy. When the rooster crowed thrice, Gao Yang opened the door and walked out. When he saw Shun Miao and Pei Lang sitting on the steps, he could not help but be slightly surprised. You two sat for the entire night? Shun Miao rubbed her knees and asked Gao Yang, "How is he?" "It is temporarily stabilized. The effect of a yuan gathering pill is not bad. Next I will be in the room researching the method to detoxify the poison. No one is to disturb me." He looked at Shan Miao again. "These days he will be entrusted to you to take care of him." Uncle Tang, who heard the news, could not help but ask that if you do not come out after 10 days. Gao Yang did not speak, and the atmosphere in the room suddenly became heavy. "You go." In the silence, Shun Miao opened her mouth. Her voice was very calm, as if the person on the bed who was on the verge of death was not her husband. Gao Yang looked at her seriously. "I also hope to succeed. If not, I will not be happy for the rest of my life." He turned and left. Uncle Tang looked at Shun Miao before looking at Pei Lang and said, "Foreign, Gentleman Pei, you two have been keeping watch for the entire night and have not eaten anything. Currently, Master's condition has stabilized. It is better to eat something first and rest. Do not let Master's injuries recover, but you two fall sick from exhaustion." Shin Miao nodded her head and said, "Bring it to the room. I will rest here for a while, and it will be convenient to take care of him. Also send someone to G4 inside to pass a message that His Highness's condition is temporarily stabilized, but he has not woken up. Do not come over for the time being." Uncle Tang nodded his head. Pei Lang looked at Shun Miao and saw that Shun Miao had already walked to the chair in front of the bed and sat down. His eyes dimmed, and he turned to leave. Gu Yu quickly brought a bowl of porridge over, and Shun Miao let her close the door on the way out. There was only Shin Miao, the unconscious Xie Jingxing, and Tai Yi left in the room. While eating, she asked Tai Yi, "What's going on? Can you tell me now?" Tai Yi hesitated. Shin Miao stopped what she was doing and stared at him sternly. "That day you followed him into the inner field, so no one is clearer than you about what happened. Even if you only recognize him as your master, you can't hide it from me." Tai Yi hurriedly said, "No, madam. It's just that this subordinate is not very clear about Master's plan this time. Because it was the Emperor who discussed with Mistress. Even the MOU army was not used. But there seemed to be some changes midway. The Emperor's life was hanging by a thread, and someone was mixed in the Imperial Guards to ambush him. Master was seriously injured because he blocked the knife for the Emperor, and that knife was coated with poison. Someone wanted to take the Emperor's life. In that instant, it was as if some beads were finally connected together, and there was a vague answer to the conjecture in Shun Miao's mind. This hunt was actually a game between Emperor Yong Lu and the Lu family, or perhaps the Lu family. Emperor Yong Lu wanted to use his own life to bring down the entire Lu family, and the Lu family wanted to take the opportunity to deal with Emperor Yong Lu, but did not know that Emperor Yong Lu had already made up his mind to die. Chapter 924. But Emperor Yong Lu did not inform Xie Jingxing of this plan of mutual destruction, or it could be said that Emperor Yong Lu knew that Xie Jingxing would not agree to it. Thus Xie Jingxing said that there was a change in the plan. In order to save Emperor Yong Li's fate, Xie Jingxing suffered such a heavy injury. Shun Miao silently looked at the youth lying on the bed. He was usually arrogant and mischievous, and was good at grasping everything in the palm of his hands. The Qian schemes were lifted up high and lightly dropped by him, covered in a careless smile. Because he was always used to showing off his strength, it made people forget that from a certain perspective, he was also an ordinary person and would also die of old age. Once he was injured, he would be in danger, and there was even a possibility that he would completely disappear from this world. Shin Miao's heart suddenly felt pain as she recalled the sentence, "Wait for my return," that Xie Jingxing said to her before entering the hall. Looking at the scene in front of her again, she felt that it was extremely ironic. Moreover, the effect of the yuan pill would not last long, and if Gao Yang was unable to research the antidote in 10 days, what would happen? Shun Miao frowned as she looked at Xie Jingxing, and her nails gradually dug into her palms. If it could not be done in front of him, then the main culprit would make him taste 10 times the pain. In Weiyang Palace, Emperor Yong Lu fiercely threw the booklet in his hands onto the floor. Empress skinned aside and bent down to pick up the booklet. His Lu family's guts are big enough, and their hearts are wild enough. The emperor's face was as heavy as water. At this time, they're still flaunting their prowess in front of Jin. Jin cannot wait to skin him and drink his blood. The Liu family used their power to commit crimes, and this time, they even took a risk out of desperation. If not for Jing Xing sacrificing his life to protect. Empress Xian did not continue speaking. Hearing this, a flash of pain appeared in Emperor Yongli's eyes. Jin can't wait for Jin to die. Jing Xing is a child that values relationships and righteousness. The emperor obviously knows that he would not agree. That is why one did not tell him at the start. In other words, even if the emperor arranged everything, it might not make Jing Xing happy, and to him, it would be a shackle. The emperor did not even consider his feelings. Empress Xianda's words were sharp, but she didn't give Emperor Yonglu any face. Emperor Yonglu was already in a bad mood, and when he heard this, he was almost enraged. Your Majesty, you don't have to be angry. Jing Xing hasn't woken up yet. The most important thing right now is to complain. Empress Xianda reminded him when she saw him like this. Emperor Yonglu closed his eyes and said, I know. I only have this one brother. Gao Yang is taking care of Jing Xing's injuries, and there is no news from Prince Rui's residence. But Your Majesty, the more important thing is that the Liu family has started to take action. I know. Emperor Yongli's lips curled up slightly. His current appearance was 70 to 80% similar to the usual Xie Jing Xing. He was clearly smiling, but one could feel his coldness and danger. He said, he wanted to deal with me. Since I didn't die, it's my turn to deal with him. Military power? Everyone has it. The Liu family has lived for a long time. This time, if Xie Yuan is not well, I want the entire Liu family to be buried with him. He paused and said word by word. If Xie Yuan were to recover, they would have no way to escape. Empress Xianda nodded her head slightly and looked at the sky outside. Outside the imperial palace in June, the sun was shining brightly just now, but now it was overcast with dark clouds. In the end, the heavens were going to change. In the Gao family residence, Gao Yang had just returned to the residence when he heard an aggressive voice. Gao Yang, you are clearly a great Liang's Longyi people, but lied to me that you are from Ming Qi's Ding capital. You are not some imperial physician and are clearly the great Liang's Minister of Defense. You are a liar. Chapter 925. Luo Tan angrily stood at the doorway. Her expression was somewhat haggard, and there were traces of bruises under her eyes. At this moment, when she looked at Gao Yang, it was clear that she needed an explanation from Gao Yang. Gao Yang wanted to return to refined medicine. His pharmacy was in his own residence, and there were many medicinal herbs in the residence. The Gao residence and Prince Rui residence were not far from each other. Thus he returned to the residence to refine medicine, but did not expect to encounter Luo Tan's questioning upon his return. The maidservant beside Luo Tan looked at Gao Yang apologetically. On the morning of the royal hunt, she had originally followed Gao Yang's instructions to have Luo Tan stay away. Who knew that Luo Tan would sneak out on her own and coincidentally see Gao Yang walking among the officials? Luo Tan was usually muddle-headed on small matters, but was very astute on big matters. She immediately turned back to ask the maid, and when the maid saw that she could not hide it anymore, she could only tell the whole story. For Luo Tan, this was somewhat unacceptable. Gao Yang was a pure doctor, so it did not matter if he was in the Great Liang or Ming Qi. But he was obviously the Minister of Defense of the Great Liang, but was an imperial physician in Ming Qi. In Luo Tan's eyes, he was no different from an enemy country's spy. In addition, the Luo family was a military family, and when Luo Tan was young, she and Luo Qian would always go to the opera troupe to listen to plays. Most of those loyal and righteous people would die from the spies. Luo Tan originally had a good impression of Gao Yang. Even though there were some small flaws, he would take care of her daily. Now that the person who took care of her had become a bad person, Luo Tan's heart could not accept it. This was really like when it rains, it pours. At this moment, Gao Yang was busy with Xie Jing Xing's matter and coincidentally bumped into Luo Tan. If it was before, he would definitely explain to Luo Tan in a good manner, but now there was not enough time. She was alone in a foreign country, and her husband's life was hanging by a thread. Perhaps it would be good to have a sister by her side. He then said to the servant beside him, "Tell her that I will enter the room first. No one is allowed to come in." He then walked towards the pharmacy. Luo Tan thought that Gao Yang would explain some difficulties, as she did not believe that Gao Yang would do such a despicable and shameless thing. She did not expect that Gao Yang not only did not explain, but also directly ignored her and entered the room. She said, "Hey, what do you mean? Tell me first, what are you?" Young Lady Luo, the manservant beside Gao Yang, quickly stopped her and said, "Let me tell you. Actually, things are a bit tricky now. Young master went out today to treat someone. Something happened to the prince of Prince Rue's mansion, and he needs young master to treat him." Luo Tan was startled. "Prince Rue? Isn't that my brother-in-law? What happened?" The servant wiped his sweat. "It's a long story." At the other end, Shun Miao leaned over Xie Jingxing's bed and blinked her eyes before sitting up again. After a short nap, she felt much better. She turned to look at the man on the bed. His eyes were still closed, as if he was asleep. Seeing that he was fine, Shun Miao's heart was at ease. But her heart was always in a mess. Shun Miao felt that ever since she was reborn, she had been living a stable life. Because of the previous lifetime's road in front of her, she always grasped things that others could not grasp. There was no such thing when she was forced to a dead end. But right now, it was the first time in her life that she tasted the feeling of powerlessness. Even though it did not happen to her, it was more uncomfortable than if it happened to her. But firstly, she did not have medical skills, and secondly, she did not know how to detoxify, and could only take out 3 yuan Guiyuan pills. Shen Miao was indeed not used to placing all her hopes on Gao Yang. She slowly reached out and held Xie Jingxing's hand that was exposed outside the blanket, as if this would make her feel at ease. Uncle Tang came over to send some hot tea and snacks to Shen Miao. Shen Miao did not rest well and did not eat well, so she looked haggard. Uncle Tang said, "Foreign should also eat something. It is very tiring to keep taking care of master like this." Shen Miao gave her thanks and suddenly thought of something. She hesitated for a moment before asking, "Uncle Tang, when His Highness just arrived at Longyi 2 years ago, was it also like this?" 2 years ago, there was another reason why Xie Jingxing returned to Longyi. In the battlefield of the northern Jiang, there were Emperor Wen Hui's men in the Ming Qi Xie family's army, and those people wanted to take his life. Xie Jingxing escaped life and death, but he did not escape serious injuries. From what one heard, it seemed to be a life and death situation. At that time, it was fortunate that Gao Yang was by his side, and Xie Jingxing's own fortune was great, else one feared that there would not be the current Prince Rue. Uncle Tang was startled for a moment and looked at Xie Jingxing, who was on the bed. His eyes were filled with memories, so foreign also know about it. Indeed, when Master first returned to Longyi, he was also sent back. At that time, the physician said that there was no way to save him, and Gentleman Gao was also helpless, but at the end, Master managed to pull through. It was really a miracle. Chapter 926. So foreign also know. Indeed, when Master returned to Longyi for the first time, he was also sent back. At that time, the physician said that it was impossible to save him, and Gentleman Gao was also helpless, but at the end, Master was able to pull through. It was really a miracle. Shen Miao's eyes hung down. There are a lot of people who want his life in Longyi. Uncle Tang looked at Shen Miao with some surprise and hesitated for a moment before shaking his head and sighing, "How is it that easy to defend the great Liang's rivers and mountains? If it is so at that time." He suddenly stopped talking and said, "In short, foreign must take care of your body." As he spoke, he wanted to instruct the kitchen to brew the medicine and was about to leave. Just as Uncle Tang was about to leave the door, Shun Miao called out to him and asked, "Uncle Tang, the relationship between the late emperor and His Highness did not seem to be good. Do you know about this matter?" Uncle Tang's footsteps staggered and paused before slowly speaking. To be dissatisfied with foreign, this servant was once an attendant of the late Empress residence. It is just that if foreign wants to know about these matters, It is better to wait for His Highness to tell you personally. Forgive this old servant for not being able to tell." He bowed and turned to leave the room. Shen Miao pressed her forehead. The great Liang's imperial family's secrets were no less than Ming Qi's, so what secrets would Xie Jingxing have? What was the relationship between the late emperor and Emperor Yonglu? Xie Jingxing did not tell her about these matters, and she also did not know the depth of it, thus she could not act rashly. At this time, Shen Miao would rather be more impulsive and not be so cautious. Perhaps she would be able to find out the truth by accident. Just as she was thinking about it, she saw Gu Yu rushing in with wide eyes and a somewhat helpless look. Foreign. Foreign, Shen Miao frowned. The more it was at this time, the more one must not be rash and hasty, as panic would cause chaos. The residence of Prince Rui could not be taken advantage of at this time. She asked what happened. "Why are you so flustered?" Before she finished speaking, a familiar voice was heard from outside. Biao, youngest sister. Shen Miao was startled and saw a familiar figure suddenly appearing behind Gu Yu. If it was not Luo Tan, who else could it be? Luo Tan's expression was somewhat anxious. When she saw Shen Miao, she walked in quickly and looked at Xie Jingxing, who was still unconscious on the bed, and muttered, "He really did not lie to me." Shen Miao stood up and asked, "Why are you here?" She had always been tolerant towards Luo Tan, like an elder toward a junior. Now that she stood up with a cold face, Luo Tan was startled. She couldn't help but shrink her neck and whispered, "It's a long story." After Luo Tan told Shen Miao about the ins and outs of how she came here, Shen Miao could not help but suck in a breath of cold air and disapprovingly said, "Simply nonsense. The distance between the Great Liang and Ming Qi was very far, and you were staying alone in someone else's residence. If anything happened, how would Jiu and Jiumu feel? So what if you give in to my parents?" Luo Tan knew that she was in the wrong and whispered, "I know I was wrong. I just wanted to follow you guys." Then she said in a lower voice, "I didn't expect Gao Yang to be from Longya. He lied to me that he had traveled to Longya and happened to have a mansion here." Shen Miao looked at the submissive Luo Tan and did not know what to say. Since the matter had already happened, it would be useless to blame anyone. Moreover, up until now, everything could be said to be safe, and no trouble had occurred. Even though Gao Yang was not as simple as he looked on the surface, but since he followed Xie Jingxing, he would not do anything disrespectful to Luo Tan. Even though Shen Miao did not know why Gao Yang would be like this, but looking at Luo Tan's appearance, Gao Yang should have taken good care of her. Chapter 927. Luo Tan was afraid that Shen Miao would mention sending her back now and immediately diverted the topic. Gao Yang went to the pharmacy to refine the antidote for brother-in-law. I thought that he was speaking nonsense, but now seeing brother-in-law, one then know that it is true. She looked at Shen Miao. "Biao, youngest sister, is brother-in-law's injury really serious?" Shen Miao did not want to hide from her and nodded her head. The peaceful Yuan gathering pill can at most ensure his health for 10 days. If after 10 days, Gao Yang is still unable to refine the antidote, then it would be dangerous. Luo Tan was horrified. "Is there no other way?" "I'm thinking." Shen Miao's eyes drooped down. The news had already reached His Majesty's ears, and His Majesty is secretly recruiting doctors, but distant water cannot quench present thirst. Luo Tan was silent for a moment, but reached out to hold Shen Miao's hands and said firmly, "Brother-in-law is so talented and will definitely be fine. Both of you will be long, and I am still waiting for you to give birth to a little nephew for me. You do not need to worry. I will accompany you to guard." Luo Tan was after all a family member, and in a foreign country, no matter if it was Gao Yang or Jiu Shu, there was still a layer of closeness. Even if Luo Tan did not do anything, she would at least make one's heart feel better. Xie Jingxing could not be separated from others, and because one did not know if his injuries would relapse, he needed someone to take care of him. So, Shen Miao personally took care of him. She sat by Xie Jingxing's bedside almost all day, feeding him water, and when there was nothing to do, she would read a book at the side, which was the Great Liang's political and historical books. She must quickly understand the great Liang country so that she could have countermeasures in the future. She really did not like to be in a passive situation. Luoten, also accompanied by Shan Miao's side, and other than returning to her room to sleep at night, she would also sit with Shan Miao in the room at other times. It was rare that she, with her restless temperament, could stay here for a long time, even though most of the time she would be sitting in a daze. 3 days passed by quickly, and in these 3 days, Xie Jingxing did not wake up at all. Other than Gao Yang, who was in closed-door cultivation to refine medicine, Emperor Wenhui also sent an old imperial physician with the highest medical skills in the palace to take care of Xie Jingxing. Because the old imperial physician was present, Xie Jingxing's pulse was considered stable. Everyone placed their hopes on Gao Yang, hoping that he would be able to produce the antidote within 10 days. Otherwise, no one would be able to help them even if they cried for help. Who knew that on the 4th day, Xie Jingxing suddenly felt unwell. First, his pulse became extremely chaotic and unstable, and his breathing became very rapid. His face was frighteningly pale, and he couldn't even drink water. The wound had also begun to fester, and it looked extremely dangerous. The old imperial physician came over to take a look and shook his head with a sigh, saying that the poison in Xie Jingxing's wound was initially suppressed by Gao Yang's acupuncture technique, but it was only for a moment, and now the poison could no longer be suppressed and started to spread. If he did not have those 3 origin-returning pills, Xie Jingxing would not be able to hold on right now. However, even if they managed to survive for now, even if they were lucky enough to survive for 10 days, it was still hard to say what would happen to Gao Yang. Xie Jingxing's sudden deterioration made everyone's heart uneasy, especially Shan Miao. Previously, when Xie Jingxing was injured, he was still considered to be calm, which made her a little comforted, but now she was unable to deceive herself. The matter of Xie Jingxing possibly not waking up was clearly placed in front of her. Even though the old imperial physician's medical skills were brilliant, he was not as brilliant as Gao Yang. If even Gao Yang was helpless, naturally he would be even more helpless. After repeatedly shaking his head, he returned to the palace to report. Uncle Tang hesitated for a long time before asking Shen Miao, "Foreign, at G. Foreign's end, is it necessary to inform?" When he said those words, Uncle Tang's tone was very difficult, as if it contained great grief. Chapter 928. After Xie Jingxing returned from the hunting grounds, Shen Miao kept it a secret from the Ji residents because she did not want Ji Foreign to worry and also to avoid alerting the enemy. But now Uncle Tang's meaning was that if Xie Jingxing really could not make it, Ji Foreign would definitely come and see him. No need. Shen Miao decisively interrupted his words. Not for the time being. Uncle Tang was startled, and Tai Yi was also somewhat surprised. Pei Lang, who had been silent all the while, said, "No matter what, there are some things that should be considered." Consider what? Consider the aftermath? Even though Shan Miao knew that Pei Lang was right, and in such a tense environment, grief was unavoidable, but the most important thing was the future. Now one had a plan for the future. Shen Miao's heart burst with an inexplicable fire for no reason. Thinking of the previous lifetime when Wan Yu was married, Pei Lang also said to her in such a light manner, "Her Princess Highness is already married. Your ladyship should think more about the future." She coldly swept a glance at Pei Lang, and that gaze made Pei Lang startled, and his heart could not help but slowly sink. Luo Tan had long been unable to sit still and returned to the Gao residence to look for Gao Yang. However, she was told that Gao Yang must not be disturbed when refining medicine, and no one was allowed to enter. Luo Tan was angry. "This cannot be done. That cannot be done. Could it be that I want to see my brother-in-law get sick? It is fine if it is my brother-in-law, but my youngest Biao sister is pitiful. In just a few days, she has become a lot more haggard and lost a lot of weight. She had just gotten married, and this kind of thing happened. If something really happened, my youngest Biao sister would definitely not be able to live." Luoten had seen many dramas and had seen quite a number of scenes of people dying for love. Even though Shan Miao was usually calm and collected. She was, after all, a young female of more than 10 years of age and had just gotten married. If something happened to her husband, how could Shen Miao bear it? It was not possible for a young female to be a widow. The surrounding servants of the Gao residence looked at each other in dismay and did not dare to speak. This young lady of the Luo family's background was not small and was the Di Biao sister of Rui Wang Fei. Her temperament was as impulsive as fire, and even their young master had to give in to Luo Tan, not to mention them, the servants. Now that Gao Yang was in the pharmacy and could not be disturbed while he was refining the medicine, they, the servants, were unlucky and had to bear the wrath of Miss Luo. What kind of famous doctor is he? The world's famous magical hand, Loyal Heart, can't even detoxify a poison. What if he can't detoxify the poison after 10 days? Luo Tan's eyes reddened and her voice choked. It was as if she felt ashamed to cry in front of so many people. She turned her head and ran back into the room. She slammed the door shut and fell on the bed, crying silently. The people of the Luo family all had the kindness to stand up for injustice and judge others by their own standards. Especially since Shen Miao was Luo Tan's relative, Luo Tan could not wait to be in her place. Seeing Shen Miao being upset and not being able to help, Luo Tan felt that she was really incompetent. He felt that he did not have the face to face Shen Miao and was unable to face himself, so he simply locked himself in the room for a whole day. He didn't even eat, as if doing so would make him feel better, because no matter how sad he was, he would not be as sad as Shen Miao. As a result, Luo Tan's actions scared everyone in the Gao residence. The servants in the Gao residence had been by Gao Yang's side since he was young. Gao Yang had always been gentle with women, but had never brought a woman into his residence. Moreover, he liked to tease Luo Tan, which was completely different from his usual lenient behavior. There must be a demon in an abnormal situation. Gao Yang's mind was sharp, but the servants were not stupid. The reason why they indulged Luo Tan was because they saw Luo Tan as their future female master. This future female master's heart was not comfortable at the moment and refused to eat. If their young master came out a few days later and saw Luo Tan's appearance, he would definitely be distressed. If he was distressed, the ones who would suffer would be the servants. Chapter 929. The servants discussed and decided to find someone to go in and comfort young Lady Luo. After searching around, they finally unanimously pushed out a person, a young girl called Benyu. Benyu was the daughter of a poor family that Gao Yang had saved from the hands of tyrant. If it was not for Gao Yang's rescue, Benyu would have entered a brothel to be a girl. After entering the Gao residence, she became a servant girl. When Benyu was young, she was abducted by human traffickers and traveled all over. Her knowledge was extraordinary, and she had some cleverness of the marketplace. She had a silver tongue, and if there was anyone in the Gao residence that could not think things through, it was not wrong to find Benyu to take care of them. At this moment, Luo Tan was not happy, so everyone called Benyu over to let her quickly persuade Luo Tan, so that Luo Tan could eat well. Luo Tan was sitting in the room, crying silently. She saw someone push open the door and come in. It was a little girl with 2 red ribbons tied around her head. She carried a food basket in her hand. She placed the basket on the table and opened it, taking out some dishes from inside. The dishes were fragrant, but how could Luo Tan eat right now? So she said, "You go out, I do not want to eat." Young lady must not implicate your own body. The world is big, but the body is the most important. If one does not eat, one would easily fall ill. If young lady falls ill, Rui Wang Fei would be very uncomfortable. Benyu said. Luo Tan shook her head. "I cannot eat." "Young lady, there is no need to think things through. His Highness Qin Wang is a good person and the heavens help him. Even though it is dangerous this time, he will definitely be fine in the end. It is said that one would have good fortune after surviving a great disaster. Thinking about it, in the future, it would be a flood of good fortune." Benyu continued to do her best to comfort. Luo Tan smiled bitterly. Anyone can say beautiful words, but it is not something that can be said in a few words. If saying a few auspicious words will make a person better, then what is the use of doctors in the world? No matter how nice you say it now, it is useless. It is better to do something practical to let my younger brother-in-law get better earlier and Biao younger sister be at ease earlier. Ben Yu was surprised. Luo Tan looked careless every day, and one could tell that she was easy to deceive. She did not think that she would have such insight. When people are sad, they do want someone to say a few words of comfort to them, but only they themselves know what it is for. These pleasant words did not deceive Luo Tan. Luo Tan sighed, and her gaze became even more worried. Ben Yu said, "Miss, it's better to have something to say than nothing. It's never wrong to hope that His Highness will get better." "What you said is correct," Luo Tan said. "It's just that the current situation is critical. If you want me to relax, I cannot do it. Don't try to persuade me. I can't listen to you right now. Even if I let myself listen, my heart," she pointed to her chest, "can't do it." Ben Yu thought for a moment. This was the first time he was at his wit's end. She racked her brains for a long time before she seemed to think of words that could comfort Luo Tan. She said, "Actually, His Highness the Prince might not be that anxious. It is not the 10th day yet. Previously, this servant had a younger sister who had a younger brother at home. He was only 3 years old and contracted a terrible disease. Everyone said that he would not live past 3 days. At that time, young master had also seen and said that the little child would definitely die within 3 days. Who knew that this servant's younger sister was lucky and met an expert who said that he had a way to change the little child's life. The younger sister brought her younger brother to find that expert, and guess what happened after 3 days? This Ben Yu was probably a talent to be able to speak in such a way that it was like a storyteller in a restaurant. Luo Tan could not help but be attracted by her words and continued to ask, "What is it?" Ben Yu clapped her hands. "That little child is alive. Not only is he alive and well, he is even healthier than before." Luo Tan was startled and asked, "Why is it like this?" Chapter 930. Ben Yu said, "Newbie also find it very strange. Even young master could not explain it." "Where's that pair of siblings now?" Luo Tan asked. Because there were too many curious people, Newbie's little sister felt annoyed. Coincidentally, it was the right time to leave the residence, so she brought her younger brother to move out of Longyi. As to where they went, no one knows. Ben Yu said, "Speaking of which, she even drew the place where that expert lived for this servant, and this servant returned it to young master. Young master brought people over to take a look, but discovered that there wasn't any house that little sister spoke of, and there was only an uninhabited wasteland. Thinking that that person probably moved away, or perhaps little sister remembered wrongly, he left. In the end, they were not able to see that expert." Luo Tan pondered for a moment and suddenly asked, "Do you still have a map of where that expert is?" "There is." Ben Yu nodded. "Almost everyone in this residence has one. There were too many curious people at the start, and everyone wanted to find that person to change their fate, to see if they could exchange for a rich and noble future. But in the end, they all returned without success." Luo Tan asked, "Then bring it for me. What do you want this for?" Ben Yu suddenly thought of something and cried out, "You wouldn't want to find that expert, right? The matter of the younger brother of Newbie's little sister has been many years, and one does not even know if that person is still alive. Moreover, even Gongzi couldn't find him back then." She said, Newbie didn't want young miss to find that expert to think of a way. Ben Yu's heart was full of regret. She mentioned this matter to Luo Tan to make Luo Tan feel better. Look, that little brother was predicted to not live past 3 days and was able to escape from death in the end, much less Prince Ray, who knew that this Luo Tan did not follow the normal path and actually wanted to find that expert. If that expert was so easy to find, wouldn't everyone be able to find him? What was the need to be busy here? Gao Yang would also not personally go and refine medicine. Luo Tan shook her head. You just need to take it from me to see. I do not have to find that expert. I just feel very uncomfortable sitting here and not doing anything. No matter if I search or not, at least I have done my best for brother-in-law and Biaomei. I am not a useless person, and my heart will feel much better. Since he had already said it like this, Ben Yu had no reason to refuse. She went out very quickly and returned very quickly. She handed Luo Tan a map that was embroidered with a handkerchief and blushed. "This servant's drawing is not good, and I don't know how to read. I can only do embroidery. I have embroidered a map according to little sister's drawing. Young lady can see if you can understand it." Ever since Luo Tan came to Long Yi, she had been wandering outside every day. The more remote the place was, the more interested she was. She had just come along Yi not long ago, but she was very familiar with every road. She jumped up when she saw it and said, "Isn't this the south of Feng Tu Manor outside the West City?" Benyu was stunned. "Young miss also knows?" She continued, "This servant's little sister said that after passing the Phoenix Head Manor, if we keep heading south, we will be able to see the house at the bottom of the mountain. But when young master brought people over, and there were some people who went over later, it was clear that to the south of Feng Tu Manor was a broken wall. There was no bottom of the mountain, and there were no houses." Luo Tan stared at the map and said, "Feng Tu Manor is not far from here, and one can reach it in a day." Benyu said, "Young lady, you cannot. I will go and find Biaomei." Luo Tan said, "You stay here." Benyu was somewhat worried that Luo Tan would really go and find that expert who she did not know was real or fake. But thinking about it, Luo Tan was not reliable, but Rue Wang Fei was definitely reliable and would definitely not mess around with Luo Tan. Thinking that Luo Tan would feel better because of this, she was relieved. Chapter 9:31. In the residence of Prince Rue, Shun Miao looked at the unconscious Xie Jingxing and her brows tightly knitted together. Xie Jingxing's situation was getting worse, and he could only hold on for 6 days. In these 6 days, other than praying that Gao Yang would be able to refine the antidote, was there any other way? Just as she was thinking about it, Luo Tan ran in from the outside and did not say anything when she came in. She only asked Shin Miao, "Youngest Biao sister, is the compass that I gave you on your wedding day still there? If it is, can you lend it to me?" Shin Miao looked at her suspiciously. "What do you want that for?" Luo Tan avoided her gaze and said, "I suddenly remembered, so I asked you to borrow it to play with." What kind of time was this? Even if Luo Tan's heart was big, how would she still have a mood to play? Shun Miao said, "You do not need to lie to me. Say, what do you want it for?" Pausing, she then said, "If you do not tell me the truth, then you do not need to think about getting it." Luo Tan was angry and anxious, as she was always afraid of Shun Miao in every big matter. Clenching her teeth, she hardened her heart and simply revealed everything that Benyu had said previously. After finishing speaking, Luo Tan looked at Shun Miao's expression and said, "I want to look for that expert. Since he can change the fate of this servant's younger brother, it is not possible that he cannot change brother-in-law's fate. There's no other way. It's better to find someone than to find nobody." Shin Miao thought for a while before shaking her head. Gao Yang had already been there once. Compared to you now, as a doctor, he would definitely want to understand what was going on. Since Gao Yang could find that place, how would you find it? Luo Tan said, "Biao younger sister, if it is really a fake thing, how would I dare to waste your time at this juncture? I had heard from my grandfather that when he was young, he had seen a kind of Chimen Dunjia. Nothing could be seen from the outside, but every blade of grass and tree had a hidden mystery. When people walked in, they would unconsciously be confused by the scene in front of them. They would think that they were walking in a straight line, but they didn't know that they were walking on a curved path. He went around in circles, but he couldn't get out. In the early years, there were people who thought that this was the art of ghosts." Shin Miao frowned. "Chimen Dunjia?" Luo Tan nodded her head. "It's just that grandfather also said that he had seen it once when he was young. Later on, this craft gradually died out. Until now, I'm afraid that no one has seen it. I thought that since that expert had the ability to change people's fates, it wasn't impossible that he didn't know the Chimen Dunjia. There's also the Chimen Dunjia, which is specially designed for martial artists. The higher one's martial arts, the harder it is for them to get out. In the end, they'll be trapped alive in the formation. You want to say that the reason why they couldn't find the house that the siblings were talking about was because someone had set up a Chimen Dunjia?" Shun Miao shook her head. "As you said, It's only for martial artists. Other servants of the Gao residence have also been there, but they still couldn't find him. Seeing Shun Miao like this, Luo Tan was somewhat discouraged and said, "In the end, you just do not believe me and do not believe that anyone can save brother-in-law, right?" "I believe," Shun Miao said. Luo Tan stared blankly. Shun Miao asked her, "Then can the compass not be affected by other things and keep pointing toward the south? The Fengtu manor that you mentioned is towards the south. One's eyes and other things could be affected by the Chimanduanjia, but the compass would not. That is the work of the craftsman." Luo Tan said, "It is precisely this logic. This is something used by the army and the sea to point the way, but I just thought that it is the best to use it on the Chimanduanjia technique." "But," she looked at Shun Miao and asked in disbelief, "Biao, youngest sister, are you really willing to believe me and let me look for that expert?" "I believe you and also believe in my own luck," Shun Miao said. "One cannot just sit and wait for death. It is better to walk on more roads than to guard one road. No matter what the result is, one must try it out, else one would not be reconciled." She said, "I will go with you." Luo Tan opened her mouth. "Go together? If there is really an expert alive, then there must be a reason for that expert to hide his whereabouts. How can you convince him alone? Since he is my husband and I am his wife, there is naturally no reason for me to rely on other people's hands for this matter." It was as if this was the first time Luo Tan knew Shun Miao. All along, Shun Miao was rational, calm, and able to analyze the pros and cons. She thought that she would never see Shun Miao gamble and believe in impossible things, but this time Shun Miao actually did it. Was it because of Prince Rue? Shun Miao stood up, and in a moment, her expression had changed. It was so firm that it was as if this was her plan from the start. She said, "You go with me and bring the compass." She then called Mo Qing and Song Yang over and said, "Both of you follow me to the Fengtu manor. Tai Yi, take good care of Xie Jingxing and wait for my return. If there is any matter, Tai Yi, you make the decision, and if His Majesty asks, I will bear the responsibility." Finishing, she took the outer garments and went out. "Prepare the carriage." There was no doubt in her words, and there was a hint of majesty. Chapter 932. Tai Yi and the rest did not think that Shun Miao would actually think of such a thing at this juncture. Even though the Phoenix Head Manor was not far from Longyi, it would take 2 days to travel to and fro with the horses. If there were any unforeseen events along the way, the most important thing was that the legendary expert, other than hearing the Gao siblings' side of the story, no one had seen him before and did not know if it was true or false. Shun Miao go to look for an unknown person was too irrational and too naive. But Shun Miao seemed to have steeled her heart and instructed Uncle Tang on what to do these few days before bringing Luo Tan out. Before leaving, she instructed that the matter of her and Luo Tan going out must not be spread out. After disguising herself, she brought star anise, Mo Qing, Song Yang, and Luo Tan along the way. Because she wore a bamboo hat and wore the clothes of an ordinary person, no one could recognize her. The residents of Prince Rue had always been good at doing these kinds of disguises. Even though Tai Yi was somewhat worried, when Shun Miao was strict, even Shin Xiu did not dare to easily stop her, much less these servants. Looking at Shun Miao's departing figure, Uncle Tang asked, "This, can foreign find the person?" Tai Yi shook his head. "It is better to have a heart test than to not have one. At least one is a righteous person." He then turned his head to instruct others. "Hide the matter of foreign leaving the residence well. If the news were to leak out, bear the consequences." In the carriage, Luo Tan looked at Shun Miao and said, "Biao, youngest sister, why don't you sleep for a while? These few days you did not have a good rest and did not stop for the journey. It is better for you to take a rest first." Shun Miao's heart was somewhat in a mess. Now that the carriage was bumpy, even though she did not have the heart to rest, Luo Tan's words were very reasonable. If she did not rest well, it would not be good to delay the matters at hand. Thus she drowsily closed her eyes and dozed off. One did not know why, but this sleep was exceptionally long. Shun Miao originally set off in the afternoon, and when she woke up, she was shaken awake. She opened her eyes in a daze and saw Luo Tan looking at her. Biao, youngest sister, wake up. We have arrived. Shen Miao followed Luo Tan down the carriage, and at this time, it was already the afternoon of the second day. The carriage stopped in the middle of a wasteland. Perhaps no one had taken care of the branches growing there, but the branches were intertwined and almost covered the sky. In June, there would still be sunlight, even in the evening. However, this place seemed gloomy and dark. There wasn't even a trace of heat. It was quite frightening to look at. Mo Qing and Song Yang also frowned. Song Yang said, "What kind of damn place is this? There's not even a person. I heard that there used to be an embroidery shop here. The embroidery shop specialized in embroidery of a phoenix tail. However, the embroidery shop gradually declined and the shop was abandoned," explained Octagonal Anise immediately. He was an inquisitive person. Luo Tan looked up and down, left and right. She unfolded the handkerchief embroidered with the map and said, "But there should be a small path embroidered on this map. There are no roads here." Everyone came over to take a look. Sure enough, the map was clear. In front of the Phoenix Head Manor was a small path. If they walked along the path, they would reach the fields and houses. But there wasn't even a trace of a path here, let alone houses and fields. Why is there not even a single person? It is as if no one has been here for a long time. Luo Tan said, "Could it be that the grass has grown and covered the path so that we cannot see it?" Mo Qing and Song Yang looked around and shook their heads, not to the extent. Octagonal Anise and Fennel Xiang also looked around. Fennel Xiang said, "This forest is too big. After the sun sets, it would be easy to get lost in the forest and there might be other wild beasts. We're also not familiar with the roads here. Foreign, you see." Chapter 9:33. As servants, the most important thing was to protect Shen Miao's safety, lest Shen Miao fall into danger before the fated expert was found. The people of the MOU army were good at dealing with enemies, but in this unfamiliar dark forest, they were not good at walking in the middle of the night. In fact, Fennel and the rest did not care much about the expert that Luo Tan mentioned. From her point of view, Luo Tan had a whimsical idea and was too naive, but Shen Miao was also as naive as Luo Tan, making everyone's heart somewhat subtle. Only Mo Qing did not doubt Shen Miao's orders. Fennel and the rest did not understand Shen Miao, as Mo Qing had followed Shen Miao from the very beginning. Initially in Ming Qi, Shen Miao's situation was even more precarious, but she was still able to walk out of such a difficult situation. Every decision that Shen Miao made would have a special effect in the future, and Mo Qing never doubted this point. Shen Miao looked at the map and asked Luo Tan, "Ben, you said that after the siblings entered the Phoenix Head Manor, they kept heading south, right?" Luo Tan said, "Yes. But she also said that there was a small path on the south side of the map, and the small path just happened to head south, but there is no small path here. Let's go," Shen Miao said. Everyone was surprised for a moment before Song Yang asked, "Foreign, where are we going?" Shen Miao indicated Luo Tan to take out the compass and said, "Head south." "But there are no small paths here." Fennel was extremely surprised. If there's a wrong path, would it not be wrong from the start? Shen Miao glanced at the Fennel and said, "Since we are already here and cannot differentiate which one is right and which one is wrong, then let's try all of them. There are only these directions here, and since that pair of siblings said to head south, the direction would be the same. No matter where the small path is, at most search in the four directions of north, south, east, and west. When there is no other way, trying is also a way." She took the compass and walked forward. Everyone was stunned for a moment before Luo Tan said, "Biao, youngest sister, you also wait for me." Octagon Anise smiled. "Let us quickly follow." The others followed behind him. The sun soon set. The forest was already dark because of the dense foliage. After the sun set, it became even darker. Fortunately, Song Yang had brought enough matches with him. After lighting them up, he moved forward. It was just that the tree branches were the same all the way here. In the end, it was impossible to tell the difference between the front and the back. They were almost all the same branches. And because it was too cold, it was so cold that it did not feel like it was the 6th month. Ching and Song Yang were still all right, but the females were somewhat cold. Shun Miao and the rest had brought along their outer garments, and at this moment they could not help but hold their outer garments tighter. Indistinctly, there were sounds of wild beasts roaring in the forest. Ching and Song Yang stopped at the same time and slowly placed their hands on the swords at their waists. Fennel lowered her voice and whispered, "It's the sound of a wolf. There are actually wolves here. Wolves are afraid of fire." Shin Miao said, "Everyone hold 2 matches in their hands and light them up. Wolves are a very cunning animal. If there's a pack of wolves in the forest and see so much fire, they would think that there are many of us and dare not approach." Fennel was surprised for a moment, and a surprised look appeared on his octagon round face. "Foreign, you even know the method to deal with a pack of wolves." It was not strange for the MOU Army's people or the pugilistic world's people to know these methods, but Shun Miao was the daughter of an official's family, so it was unusual for her to know these. Even if the Shun family was a military general, this method seemed to be too skillful, as if it was a veteran from a hunter's family. Chapter 9:34. Shin Miao smiled, heard it mentioned by others. In the beginning, when Wan Yu was going to marry the Xiongnu people, she heard that there would often be wolf packs at the Xiongnu's side. Shin Miao was worried and found many ways to drive away the wolf packs for Wan Yu, thinking that Wan Yu would be able to use it in the future, but it was a pity. A flash of pain flashed past her eyes, and when Shun Miao looked up again, she was very calm. "Continue to move forward." "Still move forward?" Feng Xiang said, "Foreign, we have already walked for several hours. Did you not discover? We seem to be going around in circles and did not move forward at all. Just now we have walked several times, and if this goes on, one fear that one would not be able to reach the end, even if one were to walk here for an entire night." Song Yang also said, "Correct. Foreign, even if one want to walk, one cannot keep walking without an objective. Otherwise, we would be making mistakes again and again." Shin Miao pondered for a moment before looking at Luo Tan. "Is the direction of the compass always towards the south?" Luo Tan quickly nodded her head. "Yes, we definitely did not walk in the wrong direction, but this scenery indeed seems to have been seen before. Obviously, we did not walk in the wrong direction, but the scenery is exactly the same. This is even more strange." Shun Miao said, "Things that are extremely abnormal must be a demon. If we walk in the wrong direction, we would definitely fall into the trap and definitely not be able to return. It is better to keep walking like this. But what you all said is not wrong. One would always see the same scenery, and these trees look exactly the same, so it would inevitably mislead one. If it is really the same, one would be disgusted and suspicious, but if it is fake, it would confuse one's senses." She took out a handkerchief from her sleeve and asked Luo Tan to take out a handkerchief as well. She tied the handkerchief around her eyes and said, "Let's do it this way. We won't be misled by our eyes and won't be able to see anything. We'll just follow the compass and see where we can go. Me, an older Biao sister, will cover our eyes, and Star Anise will look at the compass at the front. Song Yang and the rest of you will be at the back and try to walk forward." Ching was somewhat hesitant. "Foreign, is this really possible? I know what you all want to say." Shun Miao covered her eyes, but her tone was unquestionable. "Honestly speaking, I also do not know what the consequences of walking like this would be, but Xie Jingxing does not have that much time. If we take another step, there would be more possibilities. If he didn't even leave, then the result wouldn't be strange." Yes. Luo Tan also quickly said, "No matter what, we have to give it a try first. What's the use of saying it 1,000 times? It's better to do it yourself." Fennel was somewhat surprised. She felt that she really could not understand this foreign. When she married into the residence of Prince Rue, the subordinates of the MOU army had secretly peeped and felt that this foreign had a calm and steady temperament, so she was not warm enough towards her mistress. It could be said that she was heartless, but she was willing to take the risk for her mistress to walk in the dark forest for an entire night. He looked like a smart person who rationally analyzed the pros and cons. But at this moment, he naively believed in the legend of fate changing and even used such a stupid method. Fennel was unable to understand Shun Miao's contradictory actions, but in fact it was not as complicated as she had imagined. At a special juncture, one would unconsciously reveal one's sincerity, and in times of emergency, it was not reason and intelligence that commanded others, but instinct. At this moment, wisdom was no match for the urgency in his heart. Mo Qing silently followed behind Shen Miao. Fennel and the rest paused for a moment, but did not say anything and continued to follow. The people in Longyi City did not know about the matters that happened in Fengtu Manor. All the officials only knew that Prince Rue was injured on the day of the hunt, but no one knew how serious his injuries were, and naturally no one dared to ask. It was just that Xie Yuan's position in the Longyi court was very subtle. Some people were looking forward to his death, and some people's lives were tied to him, and prayed that nothing would happen to him. Chapter 9:35. No matter how suspicious everyone was in their hearts, the residence of Prince Rue was like an impenetrable wall and did not reveal a single bit of information. They did not know what was going on, and no matter how itchy their hearts were, they could not find any clues. Thus, those who were restless continued to be restless, and those who were gloating continued to gloat. No one was able to help anyone. In the Liu residence, Liu Wanner was pacing back and forth in the room and acted coquettishly to Liu Foreign. "Mother, I want to go and see His Highness the Prince. I do not know how his injuries are. What if his injuries are serious?" Liu Foreign comforted her. How could it be so serious? If it was really serious, one would definitely look for a doctor. Now that there is no news from the Prince residence, it should be fine. What are you going over for? But my heart is very uneasy. Liu Wanner said, "It is all that Shen Miao's fault. She is simply a jinx. She had just married, and His Highness the Prince met with such a big incident. She is really a jinx to her husband. It is better to divorce her as soon as possible. If he continues to be entangled with her, who knows what will happen to His Highness the Prince?" Liu Foreign smiled. Yes. But you cannot go over now. When Prince Rue's body is better, let your eldest sister think of a way to let you meet. Now you cannot cause trouble. Liu Wanner said unhappily, "Mother must not lie to me." After Liu Wanner left, the smile on Liu Foreign's face sank, and she instructed the maid at the side, "Take good care of young lady. Do not let her go out these few days. If master's matters are spoiled, I will hold you all responsible." Speaking till the end, her tone was sinister and her face was sinister, exactly the same as that ruthless and cruel General Liu Zhengshan. The maids all lowered their heads and complied. On the other side, in the Prime Minister residence, Madame Yi and Master Yi were also talking about this matter. Madame Yi was playing chess with Master Yi. Yi Maokai and Liu Zhengshan were completely different. Liu Zhengshan was a typical martial artist, and one could tell that he was someone who had rolled on the battlefield. His eyes were filled with killing intent, and his fiendish appearance could even scare a child to tears. Yi Maochun, on the other hand, was born with a fair complexion and no facial hair. He looked very amiable. If one did not know him, one would think that he was a scholarly scholar from some family. However, this prime minister was able to make the officials of Longyan not dare to act rashly against the Yi clan when he had few children. Emperor Yongle also could not openly fall out with him. He was definitely not as harmless as he looked. Madame Yi placed a chess piece down and said with a smile, "This Prince Rue's residence is like an iron bucket. There is no news coming from it at the moment. I wonder how Prince Rue is doing now. I can't eat well, and I can't sleep well either. I'm really troubled. Doesn't Madame already have a plan in mind? Why are you still troubled over this?" Yi Maochun smiled and put down a chess piece. Madame Yi looked at him reproachfully. She wasn't a pampered girl in her late 20s. When she acted like a spoiled child, it was a little inappropriate. However, Madame Yi didn't realize it herself. She continued to move her chess piece and said, "No news means bad news. A person like Prince Rue who tried to be brave, as long as he could see someone, he would definitely come out. The reason why he hasn't shown himself is probably because he can't." Yi Maochun laughed. Maybe he's trying to confuse others. Master, you're looking down on me and trying to coax me. Madame Yi said, it's definitely not a lie. Oh, why is that so? Madame Yi looked at the chessboard and said, I'm not sure about the situation at Prince Rue's residence, but His Majesty didn't hide it at all. Isn't he starting to deal with the Liu clan now? Seeing how His Majesty dealt such a heavy blow, Prince Rue's injuries aren't light. Yi Mao-chun laughed heartily. Madam, it turns out that you're able to see through the affairs of the imperial court. I feel guilty. Why don't Madam make a guess and see what I'm planning? Chapter 9, 36. Madam, Yi lowered her head and smiled. That's hard to say. We have to see what happens to Prince Rue. Seeing that Yi Mao-chun did not deny it, Madame Yi felt that she was right. She continued, His Majesty and the Liu family have been fighting in the dark for so many years. Recently, he has been trying to rope us in. However, we are not stupid. How can we be used by others? When the sandpiper and the clam fight, the fisherman benefits. Let His Majesty and the Liu family fight. Previously, when Prince Rue was still around, we were biased toward His Majesty and were happy to be on good terms with him. However, if Prince Rue fails to escape this time, with just His Majesty, the world will still be controlled by the Liu family. It's just Prince Rue. How can he be as magical as you say? Yi Mao-chun smiled faintly. Prince Rue is a formidable person. Madame Yi smiled as well. Doesn't Master think so too? Yi Mao-chun paused and looked at Madame Yi meaningfully. Madame Yi seems to be able to read my mind. However, do you think that Prince Rue will be able to escape this time? Madame Yi thought for a long time before saying, he won't be able to escape. Yi Mao-chun looked at her. Master, do you still remember that when Prince Rue returned to Longyi 2 years ago, he was seriously injured? His Majesty could hide it from others, but he could not hide it from us. At that time, we thought that Prince Rue would not be able to turn the situation around. We don't know where he got such good luck and came back to life. Later on, he single-handedly messed up the situation in the imperial court. Madame Yi smiled. However, it is impossible for a person to be lucky twice. The last time, God protected him. This time, who will protect him? A person's fate is probably predetermined from the beginning. Prince Rue is destined to have no future. He managed to escape 2 years ago, but he will not be able to escape 2 years later. Is that so? Yi Mao-chun placed a chess piece after Madame Yi and said, I'm thinking the exact opposite of what you think. 2 years ago, Prince Rue's medicine was ineffective, but he survived. A person's fate is probably predetermined from the beginning. Prince Rue is destined to have a bright future. Since he managed to escape 2 years ago, he will naturally be able to escape 2 years later. Madame Yi did not get angry or refute Yi Mao-chun. She only said, let's wait and see. Yi Mao-chun also smiled. He placed the last piece and said, Madame seems to have lost. Madame Yi took a look and confirmed that it was true. She half coquettishly said, Master, it's not nice to play chess while I am talking. Let's play another round. Yi Mao-chun shook his head with a smile and said, maybe another day. We're going to test Hong Guang's homework today. It's almost time. Madame Yi hurriedly said, then you should leave first, Master. Hong Guang's homework is more important. Yi Mao-chun stood up and left. Madame Yi looked at old Master Ye's departing figure, and her expression gradually turned cold. She appeared extremely ugly and said sharply, he's just a cripple. So what if he's knowledgeable? In the end, he can only stay in the residence for the rest of his life. In the end, he felt it was difficult to quell his anger. He swept the chess pieces on the table to the ground and said in a low voice, exactly the same as that vixen. The servant girls in the room did not dare to move. Everyone knew that Madame Yi disliked young Master Yi the most. Yi Hongguang was the son of that concubine and was raised under Madame Ye's name. He was the son of the first wife and the only heir of the Yi family. The morning sun shone on the ground through the gaps between the tree branches. It looked like specks of silver and was very beautiful. In the pitch-black night, the silvery sunlight finally drove away the haze. Although it was only a little, it was enough to make people feel gratified. Fennel and Star Anise stopped in their tracks and turned around to support Shun Miao and Luo Tan, whose eyes were still bandaged. They said to Shun Miao, "Madam, the sky is already bright." Chapter 9:37. If they did not see it with their own eyes, Finxiang and the rest would not have thought that Shun Miao, a young lady of a noble family, would actually walk with them in the dark for an entire night in this uninhabited forest. Finxiang and the rest had gone through special training and naturally did not feel it, but Luo Tan, who had a foundation in martial arts, was already very haggard and sleepiness was written on her face, but Shun Miao still had a clear and awake look. Finxiang and Song Yang were muttering in their hearts. Could it be that this foreign was actually a martial artist? That was why she had such a strong willpower? In fact, they were thinking too much. It was just that when Shun Miao was in the cold palace, Mei Foreign and the other concubines would sometimes make things difficult for her, and the palace was not lacking in the matter of throwing stones at someone when they were down. Moreover, the situation was urgent, and she only wanted to get out of the forest. So how would she have the mood to be sleepy? "How far have we walked?" Shun Miao asked, replying to Foreign. Song Yang said, "After walking for an entire night, one have walked very far, but according to the marks left along the way, one did not see a second time, so one should not have returned." She then said, "The blindfold method is indeed effective. It seems that we were deceived by our own eyes previously. But this forest still looks exactly the same." Luo Tan said weakly. "Continue walking." Shun Miao said, "After walking so far, one would be able to walk to the end." Finxiang was startled for a moment, but did not say anything this time. Last night, they had tried to stop Shun Miao a few times, but not only did Shun Miao not listen to them, most likely she was annoyed by their words and even reprimanded them a few times. It was the subordinates of the MOU army who were used to being arrogant and despotic were actually scolded by Shun Miao like a cat that had seen a mouse. Finxiang and Song Yang were also puzzled in their hearts. This foreign looked gentle and steady and easy to talk to, but when she got angry, why was she so scary? Even that Empress Xienda in the palace would not have such a terrifying and imposing manner. The few of them continued to walk behind Shun Miao. Luo Tan was somewhat dispirited. Even if she practiced martial arts, she could not be compared to Shun Miao and the rest. She was also not as bitter as Shun Miao. Thus, she could only forcefully hold on and widen her eyes, trying to find something to distract her attention. With such a distraction, one could sense that something was not right and pulled Shun Miao, "Hey, there are flowers here." "I didn't see any flowers along the way." Everyone was taken aback. They all came over to take a look. Sure enough, there were small flowers hidden in the bushes. If they didn't pay attention, they wouldn't have been able to see them. And Mo Qing suddenly frowned. There seems to be the sound of a chicken crowing. Fennel Star Anise and Song Yang's martial arts were high. They pricked up their ears and listened carefully. Finally, they said, "Not bad. Why is there a rooster crowing here?" Shun Miao muttered, "Could it be that there's a house in front?" She said, "Don't look anymore. Let's go. Since there are sounds, the exit shouldn't be far away. We'll be able to walk out of this forest soon." When everyone heard that they could walk out of this forest, their fighting spirits soared, and they immediately regrouped and set out. This time, his luck was pretty good. After walking for the time it took for half an incense stick to burn, he felt that the gaps between the branches were getting bigger and bigger. Previously, the forest was dense, but now it was much more sparse. The more sunlight shone in, the more comfortable they felt. "Looks like we really have to go out." Luo Tan was so excited that her sleepiness was swept away. "Let's go quickly." Before she finished speaking, she saw that the forest had reached the end, but there was a small path. Everyone looked at each other, and Shun Miao took the lead to walk in. Walking along the small path until the end, he suddenly saw a field. Although this field was a field, it was also planted with flowers and vegetables, but it looked very messy. It was as if someone had planted it, but didn't take care of it properly, allowing it to grow naturally. As a result, it grew into a mess. Even so, there was still a house at the back. The house was made of thatch and was on the verge of collapsing, as if the roof would be blown away by the wind in the next moment. Everyone walked forward, and Octagon Anise ran in first before shaking his head and came out. Foreign, there is no one inside. No one. A trace of disappointment flashed in Luo Tan's eyes. How can there be no one? This place was very different from what they imagined. They imagined that it would be the residence of a peerless expert, but it was so dilapidated and there was no one at the moment, which made them feel even more discouraged. Shin Miao said, "The flowers and plants are still here, and it does not seem like there is no one. Wait here, one will appear." Before she finished speaking, a hoarse voice was heard. "Oh, there is a distinguished guest. Apologies for not going out to meet you." Everyone turned their heads, and Shin Miao could not help but be startled when she saw that person's face. She cried out involuntarily, "It's you." Octagon Anise asked Foreign, "Do you know him?" That smiling middle-aged man who was wearing a tattered Taoist robe was the strange Taoist priest who received Shun Miao's golden peanut in Ming Chi Pu Tua Temple. He was the one who calculated that her phoenix fate is good, but imprisoned for a lifetime, calculated that her past life is like a dream, one must avoid entanglement, calculated that her extreme prosperity, purple air comes from the east. Chapter 938. Shin Miao did not think that the so-called expert was the strange Taoist priest that she had met once in Ming Chi's Pu Tuo Monastery. That day, the strange Taoist priest's words made Shun Miao brooded for a long time, as she felt that this person seemed to have seen through the secret of her 2 lifetimes. But afterwards, when she sent people to search for that Taoist priest's whereabouts, they searched the entire Ding capital and did not find any trace of that person. Now thinking about it, it was no wonder that she could not find anything. This Taoist priest actually came all the way to the great Liang's Long Yi. Thus the matter was somewhat strange. According to what Ben Yu said, that pair of siblings had met this Taoist priest a few years ago. A few years ago, the Taoist priest was actually in Long Yi, and it seemed that this Taoist priest had stayed in Long Yi for quite a long time. Could it be that this Taoist priest was from the Great Liang? Then why would he appear in Ming Chi's Ding capital? It was not possible that he came all the way back just to calculate those 2 divination sticks for her, right? Shin Miao said, "Taoist priest." The strange Taoist priest looked at her and stroked his beard before shaking his head. "This Taoist priest's name is Qi Yin. Foreign is here to save someone. This Taoist priest has been waiting for you for a long time." Luo Tan was startled for a moment before asking, "Taoist priest Qi Yin, you already knew that we would come back to look for you?" Taoist priest Qi Yin smiled proudly and shook the divination pot at his waist. The pot made a crackling sound as he said, "This Taoist priest also did a divination for himself." Shin Miao thought that this Taoist priest was weird but seemed to have some real ability. For example, the words that he said in Pu Tuo Monastery were very reasonable. If he was that so-called expert, it would not be surprising. She said, "My husband is seriously injured, and upon hearing that Taoist priest can go against the heavens and change one's fate, I specially came over to ask Taoist priest to save my husband's life. After the matter is done, there will be a reward." Fin Xiang and the rest were standing behind Shin Miao. When they heard Shin Miao's words, it seemed that she knew this strange Taoist priest. Even though they were bewildered in their hearts, it was not a good time to ask. Now that he heard Shin Miao's words, he started to suspect if she was possessed. The matter of defying the heavens and changing fate was too mysterious. No matter how he looked at it, this priest was just an ordinary person who grew up eating grains. Could it be that Shun Miao had been deceived by a swindler? Shin Miao, however, knew that for a person who was able to see that she had lived 2 lifetimes and was able to see that she was an empress in her previous life, this strange Taoist priest was not someone who spoke nonsense and guessed. Hearing Shun Miao's words, strange Taoist priest smiled and shook his head. As he got closer, everyone could see clearly that he was carrying a premonition on his back and holding a fish basket in his hand. It seemed like he had gone fishing. However, there was a line on the fishing rod, and the hook connected to it was straight. It would be strange if he could catch a fish like that. Sure enough, the fish basket was also empty. How pitiful. Seeing that he was not replying to Shin Miao, Luo Tan became anxious and asked, Taoist priest, can you save my brother-in-law? The Taoist priest placed the fish against the door and then straightened his back. He looked deeply at Shun Miao and said, Heaven's secrets cannot be divulged. I cannot even divulge heaven's secrets to madam. How would I dare to go against the heavens and change my fate? But you have saved Ben Yu's friend, that little brother. Luo Tan was puzzled. Isn't that considered going against the heavens and changing one's fate? That is because my son is not fated to die. He was fated to meet me, and I was fated to save his life. Qi Yin Taoist priest said. Fen Xiang, Ba Nice, and the rest were stunned. They thought that it was just the siblings talking nonsense and did not expect it to be true. Moreover, the Taoist priest in front of them also admitted that he was the one who did it. Shun Miao frowned slightly. Then dare I ask, Taoist priest, what is our fate? The Taoist priest smiled. Heaven's secrets cannot be divulged. Chapter 9:39. To the left, heaven's secrets must not be revealed. To the right, heaven's secrets must not be revealed. And at such a critical juncture, even if Shun Miao was able to endure it, her anger rose to her head, and she said angrily, what a person outside the secular world does is not something that is completely devoid of conscience. Now that good people are harmed by scoundrels, the bad people are instead proud of themselves. It is really that killing and arson is a golden belt, repairing bridges and mending roads without a corpse. What kind of heaven's way is this? What kind of righteousness is this? Taoist priests still carried out such a practice. This is really an eye-opener for me, and I also find it extremely ridiculous. Song Yang's eyes widened. Why was Shun Miao scolding people now? These words could not be said to be incisive, but for Shun Miao to say it in one breath, it made one's heart feel refreshed. Contrary to everyone's expectation, Taoist priest Scarlet Flame did not get angry after being scolded. Instead, he laughed heartily and said, It's true that you have been with that dragon for a long time. You have also become so fierce. Very good. Luo Tin muttered softly. Are you sick? Being scolded and still so happy. Taoist priest Qi Yin opened his mouth. You are right. Heaven's way is originally unfair, but the people of the world care about the matters of the world. Heaven's way dominates the way of fate, but cannot dominate the way of fate. He smiled gently, his horsetail whisk, even though he was dressed in rags. At this moment, there was a trace of celestial air about him. He said, Even though Heaven's way did not preordain me to change his fate, and his fate is too precious, and I am unable to change it, but Heaven's way preordained us to meet here, and also preordained this poor Taoist to bestow you with fate. He spoke in a muddled manner, and everyone was puzzled. Only Shun Miao looked at him sharply. She heard that Taoist priest said, You really want to save him? Correct. The Taoist priest laughed again. Since you want to save him, then follow me. Finishing, he turned around and made a move to walk forward. Shun Miao did not hesitate and immediately followed. Fennel and the rest also quickly set off. Taoist priest Qi Yin suddenly turned back and looked at Fennel and the rest. You all cannot follow. Why? Song Yang's face was filled with anger. They were ordered to protect Shun Miao's safety, so how could they let Shun Miao follow a strange Taoist priest alone? If something happened to her, how would they explain it to Xie Jingxing when he woke up? In front of us is the Qimin Dun Jia set up by my master. No one in the world can solve the Qimin Dun Jia set up by my master, including me. There was only one life gate on this journey, and the others were all death gates. This was meant for those who were skilled in martial arts. The higher one's martial arts, the faster one would die. This madam doesn't know any martial arts, so she can travel with me. As for the rest, he shook his head. Enter and die. But why should we believe that you won't harm Adam? Fennel said, If you don't let us follow, how do we know where you will take madam? Taoist priest Scarlet Flame spread his hands like a scoundrel. If you don't believe me, I won't go. Take this lady back quickly. Feng Hua almost vomited blood. Shun Miao said, All of you just wait here for me. I will go over with the priest. Foreign, Octagon and Nice also disagreed. That, Luo Tan carefully opened her mouth. I say, can I go or not? Even though I have martial arts, it is not high, so it should not affect me. Taoist priest Scarlet Flame seemed to have noticed Luo Tan and sized her up from head to toe. Still all right. More or less no martial arts. All right, you also come with me. Luo Tan, what did he mean by more or less no martial arts? Her martial arts were just a little worse, and could not be compared to those in Prince Rue's residence who trained since young, but it was not that she did not have any good martial arts. Chapter 940. However, compared to Feng Hua and the others, at least she could go with Shen Miao. Luo Tan said, "Little cousin, I will accompany you. If anything happens, I could take care of you." Shen Miao thought for a while and nodded. Although Luo Tan was impulsive, she had not caused any trouble. Shen Miao did not know what Taoist priest Qi Yin wanted to do. She had always been on guard against people. Although she believed that Taoist priest Qi Yin had some ability, she was still suspicious of him. Feng Hua and the others saw that Shen Miao had made up her mind and knew that it was impossible to persuade her. Seeing that Luo Tan also followed them, they were slightly relieved. They gave Luo Tan some instructions and even gave her the signal fireworks that the Mo Yu army used to send messages. They said that if anything happened, she should crush the fireworks and they would naturally think of a way to rush over. Taoist priest Qi Yin was somewhat impatient and said, "Why are you still not leaving? When it gets dark, this poor Taoist will not be able to help you." Shen Miao said, "Let's go now." The path that Taoist priest Qi Yin took with Shen Miao and Luo Tan was very strange. Or it could be said that this place was like a forest, and originally there was no road. However, Taoist priest Qi Yin took a very sharp turn and fell at a certain time. It was as if there was a clear road in a place that they could not see. The road that he took was not easy to walk on. Sometimes it seemed that there was no way out, but he could dig out a new road. Luo Tan was amazed, and Shen Miao was also somewhat surprised. Luo Tan asked, "Taoist priest, you seem to be very familiar with this place. Do you come here often?" This poor Taoist has lived here since young and is naturally familiar with it. Taoist priest Qi Yin proudly stroked his beard and said, "Many of these trees were planted by this poor Taoist." Luo Tan nodded. "It seems that you are a native of DeLiang. How come I heard that? You have met Little Cousin before. Little Cousin has never been to Longyi before. Could it be that you met in Longyi?" Luo Tan was still thinking about Shen Miao's surprised look when she saw Taoist priest Qi Yin. It was obvious that they knew each other before. Taoist priest Qi Yin gave Shen Miao a meaningful look. This poor Taoist and this madam are fated to meet each other. No matter where we are, we will definitely meet. Luo Tan scratched her head. She didn't understand. Shen Miao, on the other hand, seemed to be deep in thought. She always felt that this Taoist seemed to know more than she thought. After this incident with Xie Jingxing was over, could he seriously ask her about his previous life? Just as this thought appeared in her mind, Taoist priest Qi Yin said with a smile, "Madam, you want to save someone, but you also want to ask questions. You can only choose one of the two. You can't have both. Where there are gains, there are losses, and where there are losses, there are gains. Madam, you must think carefully about your choice." Shen Miao's heart quivered. The Taoist priest seemed to be able to see through her thoughts. This meant that if they wanted to ask about the past life, they couldn't save Xie Jingxing. If they wanted to save Xie Jingxing, they had to keep silent about the past life. What kind of rule was this? Shen Miao was somewhat depressed. She heard Taoist priest Qi Yin ask, "Has Madam made a decision in your heart?" Luo Tan looked at the two of them curiously. She didn't understand what Taoist priest Qi Yin and Shen Miao were talking about. However, Shen Miao had always been like this. Very few people could understand what she said. Her brain was not good, so it was even more impossible for her to understand. Shen Miao lightly said, "I can think of a way to find the answer myself. But when it comes to saving someone, I don't have any medical skills, nor do I know how to change fate. I can only trouble Taoist priest. How can a secret be compared to a life? Taoist priest, please save the person first." Strange Taoist priest laughed again. "Madam is not honest. Instead of a secret and a life, it is better to say that you regard him as more important than yourself. So for him, you gave up the things that you are pursuing. He mysteriously smiled. Madam's hostility has also dissipated a lot because of this. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.